You're muted.
Dang it, bro. I keep forgetting that, dude. All right. Welcome in, everybody. We've got a professional show here. Welcome in, everybody, to another edition of Huskers Live. And we got some news to talk about today. So we're going to go over the latest news on the defensive coordinator situation. And then a little bit after that, we're going to kind of go over a recap of the Huskers regular season and talk about any changes we think might need to be come up, as well as maybe get you prepped up a little bit for signing day. So first things first, Brian, how you doing today, man?
I am doing good. How are you?
Doing all right. And we kind of talked about this situation in the postgame.
Yeah.
I think I even mentioned that you got to kind of look from the top down, especially when you have a failure of this proportion. But at the same time, we were like, I'm willing to give John Butler another opportunity. We just didn't know if that would be the case because, again, maybe if you win the Iowa game, you can make that argument. But as soon as you lose it, and especially in the fashion that we did, yeah, it gets real tough to kind of hold on to that and be able to justify the decision to hold on, because I just don't know if the assistant coaches outside of that would have been enough of a change to kind of appease people and really change the conversation. So John Butler is officially out as the Nebraska defensive coordinator, as most of you probably have seen by now. So we're going to dive
Breaking
into
news, actually.
Yeah, breaking. Yeah, we're going to dive into a few of the guys the names that are floating around, and as we saw from previous coaching cycles, every name floating around, it could be just completely out of left field. Everybody's going to say they know this, that, and the third. We're going to talk about some of the guys that we're hearing of, and some of the guys we think might be a good fit. So yeah, let's go ahead and let's just kind of start there. So first things first, John Butler's defense, was just kind of abysmal all season. Like we talked about, it was really one of those things where you just, if you would have seen maybe a little bit of progression over the course of the season, then you could speak to something. But literally, he left nothing to speak to. It's almost like the run defense got worse. I mean, by nature of the schedule, we kind of ran into kind of some buzzsaws of running backs and running teams at the end of the schedule, but you got to do what you got to do to prepare for that. And the coaching wasn't there, and it just simply wasn't good enough. In every account, even just the defense looked uninspired. It looked flat, and it just felt like Nebraska couldn't do anything successfully. And even the hallmark pass defense that was, good yardage wise throughout the season, it's not one of those defenses like pass defenses that I really felt, I don't know about you, but I didn't really feel like it was lockdown. You know what I'm saying? When you have like a real lockdown pass defense, you kind of feel like that confidence in it. I didn't have that. Like, I felt like it was still very susceptible to getting beat.
I'm glad you said that, because that was more towards the latter part of the season where I was getting really frustrated with the elite pass defense narrative. Just for the sake of our discussion here, Iowa completed 9 passes, 9 of 16, pretty solid, right? But it's not even about how many they completed. It's about what they did with those completions, which was for 166 yards, which, quick math here, is 18.4 yards per completion. Not very good. And the week prior against Penn State, they were 11 of 12, and you gave up 14 yards per completion. And it wasn't even just that. That was just the tip of the iceberg. Guys were running wide open, busted coverages left and right. And part of that, too, was your pass rush was just non-existent for the duration of the year. Your top sack getter had 2.5 sacks. You can't have that. You can't give quarterbacks 4, 5, 6 seconds to throw the ball. They're going to find the pockets in the zones. They're going to find somebody open. So it was just a fluke stat, if you will, that we had this top. What was the end up being? Top 25 overall?
Something like that.
Defense. Yeah. Doesn't really matter to me when you're giving up, 18 yards per completion and 6 yards per carry, which I think that's what they ended the year at. Was at 5, maybe 5.5 yards per carry, which was over 2 yards per carry more than last year under Tony White. I mean, it was just abysmal.
Yeah, didn't feel locked down at all, and I didn't feel confident with when a quarterback would drop back to pass. I still didn't feel confident, and then just the sacks in general. Getting pressure is one thing, but then completing a sack is another. And anytime we were actually able to generate pressure, it just seemed like we lacked the fundamentals to really be able to complete the sacks and complete the plays, and extended plays really, really killed us this year. Across the board, week in and week out, by just letting quarterbacks create with their legs. And if you give, them opportunities to do that and extend plays, they're going to. And then you put your defensive backs on an island, you end up drawing, the defense gets penalties and stuff like that. So just a lot of uninspired defensive play throughout the season. So let's go ahead and dive into some of the guys that we're kind of hearing or looking at for the defensive coordinator spot. And you got some names on your end. So go ahead. If you want to start from whoever you got at the top of your list, let's go ahead and take it down the list.
Yeah, the top of my list is Brent Pry, former Virginia Tech head coach, previously the defensive coordinator under James Franklin at Penn State from 2016 to 2021. He was a linebacker coach there as well from 2014 to 2015. Previous Power 5 experiences in the SEC as well at Vanderbilt from 2011 to 2013. So a lot of time with James Franklin, because I believe that was when he was at Vanderbilt too, possibly. But here's the reason why he's a good fit at Nebraska. Top 25 defense in 8 of his 11 seasons as a defensive coordinator. At Penn State, his defenses were third during his tenure, that same span. They were third in QB hurries, fourth in total pressures, top 5 in sacks nationally, top 10 in TFL rate, which Nebraska was a disaster at in both categories that we just talked about, and top 10 in rush defense during his tenure. In 2019 alone, top 10 in scoring defense, number 1 in yards per carry allowed at 2.6 yards per carry, which we just said Nebraska was over 5. They're number 1 in rush yards per game allowed at 95. They led the nation in forced fumbles. They were 7th nationally in sacks. And that 2019 team, that defense had 10 all Big Ten selections. In 2018, top 20 nationally in pass efficiency, red zone defense, which Nebraska was borderline last, if I'm not mistaken. Their touchdown rate in the red zone was 134th nationally this year. Teams converted a touchdown at 77% rate against Nebraska in the red zone, which is disgusting. Yards per play, top 20. Third down defense, top 20. These are all things Nebraska struggled with. Yeah. He's excelled throughout his entire career as a DC.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things is overcoming really where Nebraska is struggling in the deficits these past couple seasons in general. Because he's a guy who, like you talked about, has developed a lot of guys. I think saw Micah Parsons was on one of his defenses. Yeah. So there you go right there. But runs a base, I think 4.3, but can integrate the 3.35. But I think he's just one of those guys that when you talk about just solid, when you look at a guy who's been stop after stop after stop and been able to be successful everywhere he's gone, it just speaks to a guy who has a defensive discipline and a defense that is structured, and he knows how to take his talent and kind of mold that to what, because everywhere he's been multiple different places, the Sun Belt, he's been, Georgia Southern, Old Dominion, Penn State, he's been all of these places and always been successful on the defensive side of the football. And so some of those guys that, are just built to be defensive coordinators and like you talked about, just kind of a lot of the areas solves a lot of the issues that Nebraska has with the gap responsibilities being an issue. Something as simple as being able to just come down and fill your gap. Because Nebraska, again, it's not one of those things where I feel like we lack talent in a lot of areas. Very talented team. We lacked the guys up front, but when you can counteract that with a lot of your talent if you know how to use them properly. And it just seemed like they weren't being used properly. This is the type of guy that you bring in to be able to identify talent, put them where they need to be, and be able to run them and develop them the way they're supposed to and to fit his system, instead of, I think it's less so John Butler came in and was trying to, I don't want to say in over his head, trying to figure out how to kind of marry all of this together. Mm-hmm. But it was really hard for him to come from the NFL and have no experience with this 3.35 and then all of a sudden have to learn it and figure it out. You bring in a guy like this, he has all that experience needed to be able to come in and just plug and play, but also the ability to identify talent as he's shown throughout his career.
Next on our list, another former head coach. Now, someone in the chat's already leaked my number one option, but he's going to be our surprise guy for last. But the next guy, Justin Wilcox, fired as Cal's head coach. He was there for quite a while, 2017 to 2025. 11 years as a Power 5 defensive coordinator, Boise State, Tennessee, Washington, USC, and Wisconsin, which I do like because that was when that was a Big Ten experience for him. So I like that with both the first two guys, Big Ten experience, played a lot of the teams we're playing, right? They know how to win in this environment. Some of his resume highlights, I guess, as a defensive coordinator at USC from 2014 to 2015, they're top 20 nationally in turnover margin, red zone defense, and third down defense. They led the Pac-12 in third down defense TDs with 5 touchdowns. At Washington, this was a really big project for him when he came to Washington in 2012. Their defense was ranked 105th or worse in almost every single statistical category the year prior. His first year, they were a top 40 unit in almost every single statistical category, and that was in his first year. By 2013, they were 29th in scoring defense, 10th in pass efficiency defense, 41st in sacks. Third nationally with 41 sacks for the year. And then at Boise State, he was there for those great runs they had from 2009 and 2008 as well. I don't need to go into a ton of those stats because Boise, we know, was dominating. But really, I like his experience at the Power 4 level and when he was at Wisconsin as well. He was only there 1 year, but they went 11-2, if I'm not mistaken. They went to the Rose Bowl and lost to Oregon, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So he's a guy I think is a legitimate option. But these names too, we talked about before we jumped on. Oregon's DC is now the head coach at Cal, or he's expected to take that job. So that might mess with these things a little bit because I believe Justin Wilcox is from Oregon.
Yeah, and kind of another guy again, kind of a base 4-3, which kind of get into that. I mean, we kind of have the personnel there needed because you kind of run into the 3-5 is a variation of a 4-3, like a 4-3, 4-2-5 style. But like the thing about it is, again, just another guy that you talked about has come into multiple places and improved them immediately. 11-3. You talked about in his time with Wisconsin, under 15 points per game he gave up there, but very versatile defensively. He brings in a lot of nickel packages. Cal 18th in pass efficiency defensively. I don't know if you pointed that out or not. I can't remember. And good at getting off the field on third down. So again, just we need a lot of these guys that come in and just correct things quickly. And it can't be one of those things where it's a guy who's going to have to come in and just get his personnel in there and stuff like that. We need to have somebody who's been proven to go in there, turn the place around, has Big Ten experience, hopefully has Big Ten experience. And I actually like Wilcox a lot. I have him very high on my list of people I would like to see. So
my one question, I guess, it goes for Brent Pry too, as Justin Wilcox. I think a big thing here is you have to be able to bring your own staff. I think you can't force this new defensive coordinator to work with the existing staff. I think that was part of our problem. Was Butler didn't get a chance to bring his own guys. Even Tony White didn't get to bring his own guys.
Yeah.
So I think that's one thing that has to be negotiated. What, if any, players can they bring with them? Because I don't think it ended bad at Cal, or for Pry's sake, I don't think it ended bad at Virginia Tech. I think they're well liked, well respected. But do they have anybody they can bring with? Because Nebraska has gaps that they have to fill with portal guys. And I think you're hoping your defensive coordinator can bring people with you.
Well, that's interesting because I think when if there is a situation where they are able to bring people over, I think it kind of has to be, the approach that, Cignetti took at Indiana. Like it has to be guys that have proven themselves with production, and you can't bring over a guy to just be like, and I think another thing too, it's Matt Rule just kind of has to take, because at the end of the day, he talks about he's the overseer of the roster decisions.
Mm-hmm.
He talked about before with recruiting, they look at some film, they'll all kind of put their thoughts down or rank the players or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's his personnel decision, right? Mm-hmm. My thing there is, will he be able to kind of relinquish enough of that control to where he's like, I don't have to look at these guys, like I'm going to trust what these guys bring in. I think if you do hire somebody in year 4 as your defensive coordinator, I'm not sure who. I have to look kind of at their rosters and see what kind of players we're looking at for them to bring in. But I think for you to have somebody to bring in at year 4, it has to be somebody you trust that much to be able to make that decision. 100%. It
Yes.
has to be a guy that you trust to be able to sit here and say, bring in whoever you need to, let me know what you need and we'll get them in here. And like, because until you give somebody full control, like it's always going to be, the finger's always going to be pointed at you again. Cause like you end up becoming the common denominator at a certain point, so if he wants to be able to sit here and say, like, oh, we brought this guy and it didn't work. Well, let him do what he does. It's kind of like when Bill O'Brien was with the Texans, right? They were like, okay, we're going to give you one last chance at this, but we're making you the general manager, right?
Yep.
So you can't say anything about this, right? Like you're making the decisions here. If you fail, it's on you, right? And so that's kind of has to be the mindset here. He has to just trust whoever he brings in. He has to trust to that level of like, I'm giving you full control over this. Again, he needs to be kind of the GM, CEO, whatever, and let this guy be kind of run his side of the aisle. Assistance wise, I'd hate to lose Addison Williams though.
Oh, I think that's one thing where you can negotiate. Like, trust me, this dude's legit.
Yeah.
But I think linebacker coach, defensive line coach certainly needs to be up for debate. Safeties coach, I think you could probably let Addison run corners or safeties.
I think everything else.
You can have unlimited coaches now.
Yeah.
But I'm glad you brought up the point about trusting and letting your new defense coordinator control it completely and get your hands off of it. Because if there's one thing Rule has screwed up his entire tenure at Nebraska, is hiring people he knows personally.
Mm-hmm.
His best hire to date is Mike Eckler, who he had no connection to.
Yep.
The next best one, Dykeel Shorts, wide receiver coach. Look how good that room was this year. Look how much they improved on perimeter blocking. That's why Emmett had such a good year, was because the perimeter blocking was phenomenal. It's because he hired a guy with no prior connections in Dykeel Shorts, because he let his offensive coordinator bring in his desired wide receiver coach. The next candidate we're going to talk about has ties to Rule. And this is why I think he's a legit option. I think he was an option last year, but with his buyout from his former school, because he was fired as their head coach, there wasn't a huge need, I guess, to go get him because he had enough money, to put it that way. Jeff Collins is who we're talking about, currently the quality control coach, a quality control coach at South Carolina, was the head coach at Georgia Tech. He's got ties to Rule. I believe they coached at Temple together, if I'm not mistaken. He was the defensive coordinator at Temple when Rule was there and then took over after Rule was left for Baylor, I believe. My memory is not great on the situation. Now, I think Jeff is a really good defensive coordinator option.
Note says South Carolina, let's see, Mississippi State, UNC, DC, Temple over 2 seasons. I don't have the years.
I know he's a Rule guy, though, for sure.
Kind of just, I found kind of a breakdown of kind of where his stints were, but I don't have the exact years. But at Georgia Tech from 2019 to 2022.
He was at Temple the year before that. So 18 prior.
Yep.
So I do think he's a good option. Don't get me wrong. I just worry about his ties to Rule for the reasons we just talked about, where his best hires have been the people who he has not had previous connections with. I think he's a better defensive coordinator than he is a head coach, and that's not a bad thing. There's some people that are just great head coaches, and there's some people that are, terrible DCs, but they're great head coaches, or vice versa. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. Now, he was at North Carolina for a year during Mac Brown's final season, if I'm not mistaken. 41 sacks that year, 6 nationally. Also, he is the only, or at the time was the only coach ever to be nominated for the Broyles Award 3 separate times at 3 different schools, which is certainly a good thing to have on your resume. Here's what I like most about him. Elite recruiter. Georgia Tech is really good now, but he brought in a bunch of talent with him to Georgia Tech. He had 2 top 25 classes at Georgia Tech. He had their first top 25 recruiting class since 2007. So it'd been a long time since they had a legit top 25 recruiting class. In his time there, he brought in 34 4- and 5-star players. 18 of the 50 highest rated recruits in school history were recruited under Jeff Collins. Now, he didn't necessarily do great with them. He wasn't bad with them either, but I think that is worth noting that he brought in a lot of legit talent with him to Georgia Tech. Now, again, why didn't he get, and this is my question, why didn't he get hired after Mac Brown was fired at North Carolina? Like, why did not another school not go and say, hey, Jeff, we need a defensive coordinator. You've got a really good track record. Why is he a quality control coordinator at South Carolina right now? That's my red flag. Because he should be a defensive coordinator somewhere, even group of 5, worst case scenario.
With 12 years of experience as defensive coordinator, being in the SEC, and like you talked about, just kind of the accolades that he has, pressure heavy, very top 10 nationally sacks at Florida, number 3 SEC rushing defense, like Georgia native. So it's one of those things where it's like we need somebody who can come in and recruit at a high level and has ties to some of these areas that we don't necessarily have ties to as well. Because one of the things that we do bring in is we bring in guys like you have. Addison Williams now who has ties to Florida. We've kind of staked our claim early on in Texas. We moved up in the Missouri area. We moved over into the Florida area. We're in the Georgia area, so it'd be nice to kind of bolster that area a little bit too. But also, I think you need a guy like that has proven experience at a conference like that. But that's a good question. Is it a lot of these guys? It's like, do they not interview well? What is it about them that really keeps them from being able to land these higher level jobs? But at the same time, oh, I'm echoing. Sorry, I'm hearing myself. Keep back up. Come back in.
Yep.
All right. Sorry. 1 second. Let me get him back in here, and then we'll continue this conversation. All right. Cool. I think we're good now.
Good.
Yeah. We're good now. But yeah. Anyways, so we got to have a guy who, it's going to make a splash in the recruiting side of the world too. And I think he's kind of one of those guys that we're going to be able to come in and speak to this and be like, and guys are going to want to play in his scheme. That's another thing too. I think for, especially on the defensive front, like you're going to want to, as a defensive lineman, you're going to want to play on a line where you can get after the quarterback. Hey, here's where I'm at, 2.8 sacks per year in my best season. This defensive line did this. That's going to immediately be able to attack in the portal with the exact need we need and the exact need what we have on this team. And I think that's the biggest thing where Jeff Collins kind of plays an advantage is we can then attack that defensive line. Just like whenever we needed to make a splash, coming out of Dylan Raiola's season, I think if we didn't have Holgerson come in and we still had Satterfield in there, I don't think we would have been able to recruit guys like Dan Key or Isaiah Hunter because they weren't going to want to play in that scheme. I think he gives you an opportunity to be able to go get some guys excited about coming to play on this defensive line. That's where I think the splash is with him.
Yeah, it's not going to be who he brings with in terms of players from South Carolina or, he wasn't at Georgia Tech all that long ago or North Carolina, but he's going to be able to get you some dudes from the South. And Nebraska's tried to get into the South again. A lot of their recruiting is going to be in the South and the Northeast. He's going to help you get in there. Yep. There's a lot of dudes in the South for the 2027 class that's getting, a lot of run that he can help you get in the door with that you just can't get right now because you don't have a ton of ties outside of Addison Williams, if I'm not mistaken, to the South with recruiting.
Correct.
My favorite on this entire list, and I have to give a shout out to my buddy Cole, Husker Cole on X. He had a beautiful thread on this coach. He's my favorite of all the guys we've talked about. Even probably there's 3 or 4 other guys we could talk about. This is my dude. He's not the splash hire. He's not the guy that's going to probably make shockwaves across the country about, wow, this is a big time hire. But the resume speaks for itself. And Nebraska fans, we have to get out of this. Every hire has to be a home run hire, right? Jim Knowles is not coming through this door. Jim Leonard is not coming through the door. Would I love them? Yeah, of course we would.
Absolutely.
Nebraska's not getting them.
No.
0% chance. And if they do, hell yeah. But this is my dude. I'm going to probably butcher his last name. You can probably correct me. Vince Kehres, Kehres.
Your guess is good as mine. I was thinking Kehres, but
we'll go with Kehres. But this is my dude. He's in his 6th season as a defensive coordinator at Toledo. And you're probably thinking, it's Toledo. Could care less. The resume speaks. There's one thing this dude does: perform, improve, and win. Okay. Linebacker coach as well, DC and linebacker coach. So that would actually help us with our linebacker issue. His dad was a legendary coach at Mount Union. He himself was a legendary coach at Mount Union, which again, that's a D3 school. He went 95-6 as their head coach, a 941 winning percentage. I don't care what level you're at. 95-6 is absolutely insane. In his 6 years at Toledo, he has 31 all-conference defenders. He just had a first-round draft pick from by the Eagles, if I'm not mistaken. First-round pick, all-conference guy, all-American guy. In 2020, he took Toledo from last to second in the MAC in total defense, number 1 in third down defense. In 2021, they were number 1 in scoring defense at 21.8 points per game, number 1 in pass efficiency defense. In 2022, number 1 in the MAC in total defense, passing yards allowed, passing efficiency defense, top 20 nationally in all those categories as well. 2025, this is the big year. 2nd nationally in total defense behind only Ohio State. 2nd nationally yards per play, 3.91 yards per play behind only Ohio State. 4th in scoring defense, 12.1 points per game. 8th nationally in rush defense, 91.2 yards per game. 3rd nationally in yards per rush, 2.53. 3rd nationally in red zone defense. 2nd nationally in pass efficiency defense. And 9th nationally in sacks with 35. Nebraska has 13.
Yep.
He had 2 national championships at Mount Union as their head coach. He played in 5 during his 7 years. He was a coach or a player on 12 of their 13 national championships. His defense was top 10 every single year as their defensive coordinator and head coach.
Mm-hmm. Not only that, runs a 4.25, which very similar to the 3.35. Yeah. So runs very similar off defense to the 3.35. Quarters coverage, it's kind of, but he maximizes the ability to stop the run. And I think there was a few numbers that you talked about here. First in opponent third down efficiency in 2020. And then 2021, pass efficiency defense, I think you talked about that. 118.8, second in total defense, 3rd in passing yards allowed. 3 first-team All-MAC defenders. And then two draft picks came from that. 2022, 112.19, 18th in total defense, 12th in pass yards allowed, 10th in efficiency. You talked about that. MAC championship that year, 4 first-team All-MAC honorees, the most they've had since 85. 2023 led the MAC in sacks. Again, a 2.8 per game for him as well. And pass efficiency, 11-3 that year, back-to-back MAC title games. So had an All-American that year, first-round NFL draft. Yep, by the Eagles there. So just number by number, it fits the mold of exactly, and it's the easy transition from the 3.35, 4.25, whatever. Those two are so similar in the way they operate that it would be a perfect fit. And you kind of talked about his time at Mount Union, just building something that lasts. And I think that's another thing too, is just building something that lasts, adaptability, able to come in and just, again, does what he does well. That quarters defense, you can match it up. Excellent with run fits. And I don't think he's going to necessarily require a ton of money to be able to bring in, like you talk about, not a flashy, not a splash hire,
but a damn good hire, I think.
So
I don't know what his salary is. Like, I'm sure we can find it.
Yeah.
Let me find it real quick.
I'm gonna dive into some of the comments here. I see something. There's not a cat. It's not a cat behind me. It's my Chihuahua, by the way.
Oh my gosh.
No cats.
I want you to guess what his salary is.
$300K. 150.
241.
Damn, son.
And that's up from last year.
Yeah. So not necessarily going to require a ton. Like it's a perfect, again, not a splash hire, may not be the sexiest name in the world, but the numbers speak for themselves. It's the same reason why I was so excited about Addison Williams is because you look at just everything that he's done, right? At every place he's been. And it's just not only the quick turnarounds, but the building and sustaining of success. And I think that's the biggest telltale sign of a good coach is like, can you build something and can you sustain it? And I don't care what your name is. You know, he has how many years of head coaching experience? 20 plus years or 20 plus years of coaching experience?
7 as a head coach.
7
national championship appearances, I think is what I said, or 5.
And experience is the ultimate teacher, right?
Yeah.
Experience is the ultimate teacher. So you have a guy who has all the experience in the world, who can be had at a lesser price, whose scheme fits your scheme, and he answers the questions of what you struggled with on defense in your year. I mean, it checks every box.
Here's an impressive thing too. Last season, they played a Power 4 team. They played an SEC team. They held them to 17 points and beat them by 25.
Yep.
I know Nebraska fans, we want – is it Jim Knowles? Is that his name, or James Knowles?
Jim Knowles.
Jim Knowles, yeah. We want the Jim Knowles. We want the, the big fancy name. I get that. But you have to understand, one, those guys are going to get a lot of money and a lot of offers from other places. 2, it's more about culture fit than anything else. Also, look at Jim's career. Jim Knowles, for example. The last decade plus, he's had 5 stars all over his defense.
Mm-hmm.
It's a hell of a lot easier to call a defense when you have Micah Parsons at linebacker and
you're 3 deep everywhere.
Yeah, it's those guys, great defensive coordinators. But we're talking about a guy who has turned Toledo into a powerhouse on defense. Toledo. I don't care what conference they play in. They're top 10, top 5 in almost every statistical category. They would give us trouble right now. Agree? Probably.
Yep. Who would, if you had to rank those, what would be your top 3?
Vince, for sure. He's number 1, and it's not even close.
Mm-hmm.
Wilcox would be number 2. I think he's a legit possibility. I think Brent Pry is going to probably go to Oregon. If I had to make a guess. I mean, Justin could too, now that opening's up and he is from Oregon.
Those are my 1 and 2 as well.
Yeah. Vince.
If Scott Simons isn't. In a perfect world, Scott Simons my number 1, but everybody knows that.
Scott
He's been
Simons
since last cycle.
Yeah, he interviewed last cycle. It was a really good chance. He's from the DFW area. That's the big problem. He's home. That's where his family is. It's going to be next to impossible to pull him away from there. Also, SMU has a ton of money.
God, that would be my in a dream world, Scott Simons would be our defensive coordinator.
There's one name, and we were texting about it this afternoon, that's being thrown out as a legit possibility.
Ryan Walters,
the defensive coordinator. The defensive coordinator at TCU, who was a finalist last year, Andy Avalos. And I think my exact words to you would be an effing disaster was my response to that.
Yeah,
but
and
I know he's interviewed last year, and he's probably getting another one this year.
He doesn't have what we talked about, the sustained success.
Correct. He had one great year when they went to the national championship and got boat raced by Georgia.
Yes.
And that was the year, I believe, we brought in Tony White, right?
That was.
And so that's when we were like, 3-3-5 defense. Look at that. It's making its run in the playoff.
Yeah,
and then they played a team with
the year prior. Yeah, because the year prior was the year that, because the year prior was the year that we brought in Tony White that next season. And then they came out in the opener, lost to Colorado, I think.
Yep.
That next season.
And they gave up like 48 points.
Yes. So, 3-3-5. Here we go.
Yeah. I think people's biggest concerns with Vince are no Power 4 experience. And that's 100% valid. I don't knock anyone for having those concerns. The guys we just talked about before him, all have all the experience you'd want in the world. But what I like about his experience more so than others, it's all from the bottom up.
Mm-hmm.
D3 defensive coordinator, D3 head coach, goes from D3 head coach to Toledo defensive coordinator, and he just continued that success. And to me, that speaks volumes because you're not playing with good talent in D3. Let's be real. There's some good guys, but they're all walk-ons. Your roster is very limited. There's no scholarships like at all. And then at Toledo, you're strapped financially. Their NIL is next to nothing. Their rev share is next to nothing. And they went out and beat an SEC team by 25 points last year.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. All right, so there's a list of some of the names that we've been talking about. Let's go through some of the comments here, and then we'll dive into. So we can talk about this in just a second. The sorry about my German Shepherd or whining. That's typical German Shepherd behavior. Just begging for attention. Good evening, Penn State. Maybe coming from Matt Rule because the Sataki hire fell through today. Crumble cookie, man. Well, Crumble cookie getting after it. Aussie kicker signed with. Did you see that yet last night? The whole drama with Crumble Cookie's CEO ponying up the money to go keep Sataki at BYU.
Oh, is that their big donor?
Yeah, he came out last night. Yeah, the Crumble Cookie thing. He came out last night and was like, some people are not replaceable. You got to get it's time to roll my sleeves, something like that. I forget exactly what the tweet was, but basically Penn State just lost their potential head coach of the future because of the Crumble Cookie CEO. That's college football.
That's the way the cookie crumbles.
That's a college football headline right there.
Here's the thing. I think he's a phenomenal coach. Culturally, and I don't mean this in the wrong way.
He's a perfect fit for BYU.
Yes. Like I have a friend that's a Penn State fan. We were texting back and forth about the other day.
Is he from there?
He's from the islands, I think.
I mean, or isn't he like hold on. Didn't he grow up there or something like that? I forget what they were talking. I was kind of looking at it yesterday.
It'd be news to me, so I should probably let you find.
Or maybe Mormon. I forget which part of it. I'm afraid to speak on if he's Mormon or not because I don't want to just say people are Mormon. But yeah, so he's he played at BYU, so that's what it was. Played at BYU, had a 2-year mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So like culturally, he's a perfect fit there.
Exactly what I was getting at because I don't know. I could be wrong. I feel like Pennsylvania does not have a huge Mormon population. They don't have a very huge Polynesian or Samoan population. Utah has those things. Mm-hmm. I just think culturally he could not be at a better place than where he is right now. And it's like Scott Frost said, when you're on the ladder to success, no one tells you when to stop.
Yeah.
It's a great quote. It fits this guy perfect.
They're backing up the Brinks truck for him. So I'm curious to see what they pay him. But yeah, he's a perfect fit for that. And Penn State, man, boy, are they in shambles right now?
Gosh, Nebraska did this in 2003 when they fired Solich. Like, what do you expect? You just fired a 9-10 win coach.
That was so stupid.
Yeah,
I still don't get it. With no plan.
He's raiding their recruiting class
with no plan. Let's see. Also, Rule better make a home run higher. I don't think it has to be a home run in terms of names. It just needs to work. I don't care about a splash hire. I don't care about name. It just needs, by the end of the 2026 season, we need to say this worked. That's all I care about. That's it.
Yep.
Predictions on who we get in the bowl game. We'll get into that kind of a little later. I haven't even had time to go through kind of the bowl projections yet because we've been so focused on this defensive stuff here. Let's see. I don't care what nobody says. Wilcox is the top candidate. He's definitely up there.
He is for sure.
He is one. They're 1A, 1B. I feel like. Let's see. Compton talked him into it, talking about Mike Eckler. Yes, he did. Just announced Kalani Sitake got a contract extension at BYU. Yeah, we knew it wasn't going to Penn State, but I'm curious to see, did they drop the numbers on the extension? Let me see if they dropped the numbers.
I was about to check, so go ahead.
Let's see what crumble cookies are about to cost.
Well, I mean, frick, they're $20 for a cookie.
Yeah, no, there's
their
no
overheads on it. Got to be like less than $5.
Yeah, I don't see any. I don't see any information, just that they've extended him with a new long-term deal, which was pretty much done yesterday. Well, pretty much was known yesterday whenever they came out and said that. This just then we're going to Rooter Raw Sewage Bowl, Roto. Toto.
I mean, Las Vegas
Toto,
might as well
Roto,
be.
Boneled. Slow down on the typing, man. Any surprise
Las
signees?
Vegas is basically a sewage bowl. So
I don't think we're going to get any surprise signees. No.
Amir Saab.
Well, the Aussie kicker.
Yeah.
Okay.
Amir
Saab
will be the only one. And then his brother is a 5-star receiver in 2027.
But outside, I don't really think we're going to get like, I don't think this is going to be a big national signing day where we're getting a whole bunch of like, I think this is a pretty cut and dry signing day.
You know, the tall tale sign of like, if you're working on late flips that you think you're going to get is what time your press conference is.
Yeah. USC.
If it's later in the afternoon, it's going to be a good day. If it's early,
then got some flips.
Yep.
Hit the like button. Yes, appreciate y'all. If y'all hit the like button, Rule needs to get this hire right. He definitely does. That's all I'm worried about. Eckler was right. Dana may be right. Jury's still out. Ed Foley for DC. Yeah. Great day, fellas. What's going on, Rashawn? Appreciate you hopping in here. Good, sir. Take back what I said. Vince at the top option. That's what I'm talking about, Ron T. Let's go.
Oh.
All right. So let's go ahead and dive into just kind of recapping the year a little bit. I want to touch on this just a touch, but overall, I think we can both honestly say, I talked about this in previous schedule breakdowns and things like that. When doing schedule predictions, one of the things that I focus on isn't necessary. I mean, record, of course, is important. I don't want to say I don't focus on record, but like how you start versus end the season is very important too. The context of how you do that. And there's no other way to flip this than a complete disaster of a season. Just the way the train went off the rails, complete disaster of the season. This was the year. There's no other way to slice and dice this. Complete disaster. We came in with 8-9 win projections, and we fell short of that. And there's just no way to kind of feel happy about this. It's good that changes were made, but more changes need to be made. So my question to you is, do you think any more changes are made?
Yes.
I do too.
I think we're going to see, I don't want to say wholesale change on the defensive side of the ball, because I think Addison Williams has proved his value early, especially with how well Andrew Marshall played, with how well that back end played. Despite Rex's struggles late, he had a fairly solid year as a redshirt freshman coming off injury. So I think he's proved his value there and in recruiting. I mean, he just landed a 5-star corner in Danny Odom.
Yep.
So I think everybody else could be gone, though. And the guys we're talking about as this defensive coordinator potential, one thing you notice is they all have coached linebackers.
Mm-hmm.
And if those are truly the top candidates for Coach Rule, I think that's very telling as to what your next move could be. Because quite frankly, from a recruiting perspective, last year, I think Dvorak did a really good job flipping Dawson Merritt late, getting Christian Jones to stay home. From a development standpoint, I don't think you saw anything this year that warranted confidence.
Yep.
Dasan McCullough struggled mightily most of the year. I think just drew blank on his name. Dylan Rogers played fairly good in his limited snaps, but overall, that room leaves a lot to be desired. Vincent Shavers, is going to be very good. Just I don't know how much his injury hampered him with his hand.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, and even from a recruiting perspective this year, he didn't sign a single linebacker.
No.
He missed on his top 5 options.
And I think it's very difficult to evaluate talent when you feel like the defensive staff and the defensive scheme left a lot to be desired. Because then at the same time, you're like, is this a talent issue or is this a schematics issue? Like, I feel like there was a lot of cases last year where we could point to certain people and be like, listen, for instance, the big name that pops in my head last year, and again, this is no knock on him, just Gifford was not in the right spot last year, right? Like you could point to him and just be like, listen, we're going to be better when he's gone, that type of thing. Some of these guys, I feel like it's still a question mark because I feel like there's a lot of talent, but a lot of guys didn't live up to that. But then you ask the question, is it scheme? Is it because they just weren't the right fit, or is it just because, like they weren't well coached? And that's when it becomes hard. That's why you need to bring in a guy who can come in and evaluate this talent, and be able to look at this and be like, yeah, I see the upside in this guy, this guy, and this guy. That's why it's hard to kind of sit here and engage, like, who are the players we need to keep? Who are the players that need to go, and things like that, because I still feel like there's so much upside in this defense that just we did not get to see this year.
Yeah. And then other coaches.
Uncle Donnie, what do you feel?
I'm sticking to my guns. I think he's got to go.
Yeah.
Here's my one caveat. Hire a tackles coach, because you can. There's unlimited coaches. I think Donovan has a really good interior offensive line. I think Latovsky was more than serviceable. I think Justin Evans was more than serviceable. I think Rocco was very good this year. Not all Big Ten caliber. Probably will get a late round draft grade at best. But those three were your best. And they were the year prior. And the interior was the best the year prior to that. Mm-hmm. It's always been tackles. So he can't develop his tackles. So to me, either go get a coach that can develop all five, or if you're happy with him, reduce his salary. Say you're going to coach the interior offensive line, and we're going to go get a tackles coach, and he's going to coach the tackles. Because quite frankly, your tackles are the reason why your star quarterback has a fractured fibula. Mm-hmm. They were the worst pass rating offensive line in the entire country. They gave up more sacks than anybody else. So to me, yes, you showed progression at the end of the year. Part of that was your scheme changed because you had a mobile quarterback. But I also want to credit them. I was ranked 14th nationally in rush D, and you just rushed for 250 yards. That is worth crediting.
Yep.
But you have to look at the totality of it all. And it's been 4 years of really bad offensive line play.
Yeah. And not enough of a step in the year we needed it. Again, we talked about time and time again, getting the players in there, offensive line needs to gel. Hey, it needs time to build. It needs time to grow. We've given it that. This year was the year that we needed to see a jump, not just in, he's not just in Matt Rule, but this is year 4 of the offensive line recruiting. This is year 4 of the offensive line. And I think it was Kehres clip of like, names don't need to matter, doesn't matter. Like, you have to do what's best for this team. And I think that includes getting rid of the loose ends. I think right now, I don't think he's played enough to, and you look at what he's getting paid. He definitely didn't earn that. He didn't earn that. And I'm sorry, if you don't earn your paycheck, you got to go.
Yep. Speaking of paycheck, Satterfield making $1.4 million as a tight ends coach. His contract is up, I believe, at the end of next week or at the end of the year, because he was contracted at 1.4 for 3 years. You couldn't get out of that, even if you tried.
Yep.
Has he done enough, in your opinion, with the tight end room to warrant reducing his salary but keeping him on?
Man, that's a tough question, just because of what went on with him as the OC and a lot of the friction that was caused and those things. It's hard to say because our tight ends did not get utilized in the way they should have this year. I think you definitely need to. He's Matt Rule's best friend, so take that for what you will. But I think you do need to probably look at bringing in a better tight ends coach.
I agree. And I actually think...
And a better coach in general, just a better players coach in general.
Yeah, he doesn't come off as very much of a players guy. And I think that was Butler's biggest issue too.
And I've heard that from players themselves.
Yeah, they're just very dry. They're not, and there's a difference between an NFL coach and a college coach. College coaches, you kind of have to get your guys amped up a little bit. He could not make me run through a brick wall. Let's put it that way.
And there was friction caused with him and some players.
Yeah. But from a development standpoint, I think he's done good with Luke Lindenmeyer. I think towards the end of last year, because he was still the OC and tight ends coach, I think he did some good things.
Look at what Borkacher is doing at A&M. Borkacher is still a big moment guy at A&M. Borkature is a damn good tight end.
So there's some developmental things there that make you go, he's halfway good.
Yeah.
From a recruiting perspective, Luke Sorensen, I think, is a phenomenal tight end. He's probably the most underrated tight ends in the entire country. I think he's going to be phenomenal at Nebraska. He could play early too because of his wrestling background, being able to hold the edge and the blocking. But also, here's my biggest one. Carter Nelson. What is going on with Carter Nelson? This was your prized Ballyhood recruit.
That was my thing.
And he is nowhere to be found. His development is non-existent.
Because he was supposed to start out as kind of like, hey, we're going to utilize your athleticism, but ultimately bring you into that tight end role and start using you in that way more and more. And we didn't see that. We didn't. I don't think we saw his role expand enough for how much talent he has. And that is kind of where I'm like, well, what do we have, with him? Because this is your guy. This is your all-around tight end, athletic, can do everything. We didn't see it at all.
Yeah, and quite frankly, it's 2 years wasted for Carter, and I feel awful.
Yeah.
His first year, I think they let him make the decision to not redshirt. I think that's where you got to be the coach and say, hey, you're not ready.
Mm-hmm.
He played 2 or 3 snaps a game last year in 2024. In this season, 2025, there was games where he only played special teams.
Yep.
And then for some reason, towards the end of the year, they start shuttling him in more instead of Heinrich Harburg.
Yep.
But then they've also had the development of Caden Echternock, who's more of your rugged blocker, fullback type tight end, where they always would motion him across and be your blocking tight end, which then pulls Heinrich out, which then pulls, when Carter was in, pulls him out.
Mm-hmm.
And if Nebraska, and I think this is what they're getting ready to do, I think they mistakenly found their identity when Dylan went down. 25 to 30 rushes a game. They averaged about 55 plays a game. That gives you 20 to 25 passes per game, 30 rushes per game. They found their identity. Run the damn ball. Where does Carter fit into that offensive game plan? Because he's not an inline tight end.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't figured it out yet, and that's his coach's fault.
Yeah, he's not developed enough in those areas to be kind of that all-around tight end. He's a receiver trying to run a tight end position right now. So yeah, I agree with you. That somebody should have pulled him aside and been like, yeah, listen, we're going to prepare you. We're going to get you ready, and we think it's best in your best interest if you sit out this year and let us develop you into the role that you need to be developed into. I think they were afraid of potentially maybe losing. I don't know. They're afraid of losing that commitment or whatever, just because he wants to play. He wants to see the field immediately. But yeah, you got to trust your development, trust your ability to be able to bring him, sit him aside and be like, this is in your best interest. And do that. So my cousin needs a job. He's soon to be the former receivers coach at LSU. That's a situation there with old.
Gosh. Lane is easy to hate.
He is. You see all the yoga instructors dropping their
that's the most
stories about
thing ever.
Man.
Oh, it was in Ole Miss?
Ole Miss, yeah.
Oh man.
About him being annoying, and yeah, dude. Is he not married, bro?
No, but he has 2 or 3 kids.
Dude, and he's always hitting on 20-year-olds. Weird. The dude's weird. He just weirds me out a lot of ways.
He is.
What's up, Pitts? Go ahead.
He's made it his living to just leave his current job in the most awful ways possible,
bro.
Except FIU or FAU, whichever one he was at, because that was a no-brainer. You're going to take that Ole Miss job, but burn Tennessee, gets fired on the tarmac.
I feel like
at USC,
being a grown adult person at an airport booing a coach leaving is a little weird, but I kind of get it.
He basically tried to blackmail them and say, let me coach or I'm taking the roster with me. And then he had the old, oh my gosh, what was the move? Jerry Maguire moment. Who's coming with me? And 2 people came with.
If y'all ain't on the plane tomorrow, you're not getting a job there.
And everyone's like, okay. His brother is the only one that came with, and one other guy.
God. He's like the guy in high school that just thought he's the guy who peaked in high school, and just he's still riding that high, and thinks everybody still loves him, but everybody's like laughing at him.
Speaking of O-line coaches, you know who their O-line coach is at Ole Miss?
Who?
John Garrison, former Husker.
Oh, yeah. Interestingly enough.
Pretty damn good track record, too.
Smart hire by them, too.
Mm-hmm.
Lindenmeyer was a big upgrade. He runs north-south after catching a ball. Fist bump JB. What's up, Pitts? I appreciate you hopping in here late, but better late than never. Better never late. You know how that goes. All right. Well, I appreciate everybody for tuning in. Thank y'all. Brian, do you want to tell the people what we got coming up on Friday? We got some people joining the show from the class.
Correct. So signing day is tomorrow, but we did not want to do a live show tomorrow because
and my birthday's on Thursday. Sorry, guys. So I'll be hanging with wifey.
Justin's birthday is Thursday. Wednesday's signing day. So I didn't want to push all these recruits to join our show when they're going to be obviously very busy tomorrow. So Friday, Rex Waterman, Luke Sorensen, Jamal Rule, all joining the show. It's going to be a recruiting day. It's the final day of the signing period. So we're going to get 3 of the potentially 10 members of this small 2025-2026 recruiting class on the show. Here. Jamal's been here before, so we'll probably catch up with him more about what he sees, his future at Nebraska with a wide open running back room. Luke Sorensen, same thing at the tight end position, and Rex. We're going to just kind of get a vibe for his recruiting process and, the next couple of years at Nebraska. So stay tuned.
Yep. Appreciate y'all tuning in. And I thank you very much, Pitt Snipe. I'm turning the big 35, man. I'm feeling real old, but it's all right. It's all a mindset, right? I'm 24 at heart as I sit here with shoulder pain from a pinched nerve in my neck. You know how that goes.
My back's hurting right now.
But appreciate it. Oh, and then we got your wifey is wanting her husband back, I'm sure. So, but appreciate everybody. Yeah, who cares? Appreciate everybody. Thank y'all for tuning in, man. Y'all make sure to tune in on Friday so y'all can see we get a recap of signing day a little bit and get a look into the mindset of some of these recruits and see what they're thinking about the future of Nebraska. So y'all be sure to tune in for that. And Brian, anything else before we wrap up here?
No, we're good to go.
Right. See y'all later. Appreciate it again. And we'll see you on the next video. Peace.